Google is now competing with Labs and Runway. There's a brand new tool that makes consistent characters easier than ever before. We have some new tips and tricks with the new motion brush inside of Runway, and 2024 is the end of stock libraries as we know it. I'll explain why. Welcome to your AI film news of the week. I want to kick things off by talking about the new Runway motion brush. So last week we talked to you about the new tool that basically allows you to edit up to 5 different brushes and have customized control over the movement inside of your scene. Well, we actually came across this last week a really interesting demo from David, who basically tested the limits of the new motion brush parameters. I think it's a really good example of what is possible with the new feature. I came across an interesting demo from Runway where they actually created a really interesting dolly zoom effect using the new motion brush, and I want to show you how you can do it for yourself. So we're inside of Runway and we'll go to Start with Image, and we will select from our assets. You could also just drag and drop your file directly into the browser if you want. And I have this image of this guy basically on a bus, and we will go to Motion Brush. So now here comes the fun part. So the first thing I'm going to do is turn my motion brush up to max size, and let's paint the background. So painting on the background here, and we'll change the proximity to max. Now let's go to brush number 2, and this time we're going to paint our subject. And now we'll change our proximity to about 2. Doesn't have to be perfect. And then we'll go over here to camera motion and change our zoom. You can do -1.5, -1, -2. They all create really interesting results, and go ahead and hit save, and then you hit generate. So this is the result we got from Runway, and it looks fantastic. You can see we have that really interesting trombone shot effect that looks pretty cool, but it does have some of that flicker. So what I always like to do with Runway footage is run it through a deflickering tool. There's a plugin called Flicker Free that you can use inside of Adobe Premiere Pro or After Effects, or you can use DaVinci Resolve's deflicker effect to get rid of some of that kind of exposure flicker that is pretty typical whenever you're working with Runway footage. And whenever we run it through the deflicker effect, we see that we have this result that looks absolutely fantastic. So hopefully you can test around with this effect and create some really interesting results. And while we're talking about Runway, I want to mention that they actually dropped a physical store that has a few different print magazines that you can purchase. Now, their first magazine, Telescope, is sold out at the moment, but there's a few other iterations of their magazines that look pretty interesting, and you can check them out by clicking the link below this video. And we actually also talked with Ian from Runway, who creates a lot of the demos that you see whenever you are on Runway's Twitter account. Ian is an incredibly talented video editor, and we were able to ask him about Runway and the future of creativity. We'll be dropping that podcast next week. Google also announced Lumiere, their video generation tool, and it is absolutely amazing to see some of the results from their test. Now, you don't have the ability to mess around with this tool just yet, but you can see some of the results from their website. So I want to take a look at a few of these. So obviously they have text to video, and what's really striking is how realistic a lot of these videos are whenever you compare them to some of the other video generation tools that are on the market. Now, they of course do image to video as well, and you can see some of the results in there. Obviously, abstract and organic physical effects look better, so really good wave distortions and lifelike movements when it comes to fire, water, snow, things like that. They also have the ability to do style generations. Basically, you upload an image and it will create a stylized video from that result. So it's very similar to the Runway Gen 1 effect that does the exact same thing, but the results seem very interesting. They also have the ability to do overall video stylizations that completely change your video into a different style, and the results seem very, very stable. This is the most stable video stylization tool that I've seen up to this point. Similar to using the in-painting tool inside of Labs, they also have the ability to select certain frames inside of your video and animate them. The results look very realistic, and they also have the ability to do video in painting where you literally can fill in certain areas of your video that never existed. And the results are, again, the most realistic that I've seen up to this point. There's some really interesting examples over on their website where they change the clothes that a woman is wearing, they put a crown on an owl, and of course, a party hat on a chicken, which is, of course, one of the most important things you can learn as a video editor. I really think that this update really does highlight the fact that Google is looking to be a leader in the generative AI space, and we can fully expect to see many more impressive announcements from them in the coming months. Over on X, Martin Newblong put together a demo that basically went from 3D generated asset to a high-res render in just a few steps. It's absolutely mind-blowing, and I can't wait to show you the exact steps that you can take to get similar results. So let's get started. It all starts inside of Luma AI's Genie tool. So in our instance, I'm going to say a mech suit with wheels. And we have a few different instances of mech suits here. I'm gonna pick the one I like the best. I think the top left one. So we have this very low res render of this mech suit. You can hit make high res if you want. That does take a few minutes, and we're not going to do that for this specific use case. And I'm going to go down here to the format, hit OBJ, and hit download. So now we're inside of Photoshop, and I'm going to drag and drop that 3D OBJ file inside of my canvas and click OK. So here you go. You actually have this 3D model now directly inside of Photoshop. We can move it around and just restructure our scene to put the model in the right spot. I actually think I want to do a graphic design where the model is kind of over here on the side. And you actually have the ability to adjust some of the lighting as well. This is for a quick example. You can, of course, use 3D modeling applications as well. I think this looks pretty good, so I'm going to go to File, Export, Quick Export as a PNG, and we'll just save this to our computer. So now go to Leonardo, and you can go to the real-time canvas, which is incredibly fun to use. This is an example that we had from last week's AI Film News. And I'll just go ahead and delete this canvas. So now go to the Add Image button, and we will drag and drop our mech suit into the scene. And we can go down here and say a futuristic mech suit with wheels. And now, as you scale up your image, you will see that that image is actually rendered on the side over here. And the cool thing is we can turn down the creativity strength, which will make it much more in line with the 3D model that we uploaded. So this looks much, much better. When we like what we're seeing, all we have to do is go to right-click, Save Image As, and we'll just save this as our mech suit. Now, and you probably guessed it, we're going to go to Magnific to extrapolate even more information from that image. So basically, I'm going to grab that mech suit, drop it into Magnific, and let's go ahead and we will do a ×4 upres. And again, I'll say a mech suit with wheels, and we'll keep everything else at the default setting and click upscale. So here we go. Here's our original image, and we can slide over and see that we are getting all of that very crisp detail. It looks fantastic, and I'll go ahead and download it. So now I have this very quick design inside of Adobe Photoshop, and all I'm going to do is drag and drop our mech suit into the frame here. We'll drop it behind our text, and now we can just scale it up as we see fit, and there you go. We have a high-res 3D asset for a graphic design project. And of course, we can go in here and move the assets around and line them up to basically make the design as good as possible. So really, we were able to put this design together in just a couple of minutes, and the assets look absolutely fantastic. I highly recommend checking out Martin's demo over on X, where he kind of did the same thing with a school bus, and I was really impressed by the results he was able to get. One of the biggest challenges that we talk about on AI Film News is getting consistent characters. Well, many companies have been trying to address that problem, and I have a really interesting tool that I want to show you today that basically allows you to generate consistent imagery with a subject in a more professional way than some of the previous examples that I've shown you on this show. So it's called RenderNet, and you can find a link below this video. From their website, you can go to Face Lock, and now all you have to do is upload an image. I have this really quick selfie that I took earlier today, and I will drag and drop it into our scene. So now that our image is inside of Face Lock, we now can go in and type in a prompt. So I'll keep this as default. It's going to create this cowboy scene, and let's hit generate. Okay, so let's take a look at our results. So we have this image that really does look like me with a beard, and it does look a lot more realistic than some of the other tools that I've seen that do consistent character faces in the past. So what this tool is doing is basically allowing you to edit with some of these tools that are typically only available if you're running Stable Diffusion on a comfy UI, and it's a whole technical setup. They're basically making all of these tools available to you in a very easy to use platform. And it doesn't stop there. They actually take it one step further. So they actually have the ability to use ControlNet, which can control the overall output that you get from your scene. So for example, if we take this image that we used earlier and drag and drop it into our scene here, we have the ability to go in and adjust some of these settings. What I like to do is say that ControlNet is more important. For our prompt, I have a mid shot of a man wearing a suit on a bus, detailed clothes, basically describing the overall image that we uploaded. And I should note that there are a few other settings that you can go in and adjust. So you have the ability to select certain models that you want to run. So for our example, we can say RealViz XL. You also have the ability to go in and adjust some of the settings if you want. The default settings are really good. I'm going to make sure that the aspect ratio is set to 3:2. They don't have the ability to do 16:9 just yet, but I'm sure that will be an option very soon. And you also have the ability to go in and select extra LoRa's to kind of push your generations in a certain direction. I'm going to select the Cinema XL LoRa model, and you'll see that it also adjusts our prompt just a little bit. I also like to make sure that in settings, the batch size is more than 1. I'm going to say 4 for this generation, and we will click generate. So here's an image that I generated earlier from the reference using my face, and you can see that it kind of looks like me. And it also interpreted the composition from the reference image and created what you see here. So it looks pretty darn good. Now I want to contrast this tool with my favorite face swapping tool, Insight Face Swap, which you can actually integrate inside of Discord, which makes it very helpful whenever you are working on Midjourney projects. So I have this image from Midjourney. I'm just going to bring it directly inside of this Discord channel here. And all you have to do is train it on a face. So you can go to / and we will do save ID. And all you do is drag and drop an image. I have this image of me, drag and drop, and we'll set the ID name to Caleb. There you go. And now we can / and say set ID and type in Caleb. So now this is telling Insight Face Swap that it's going to swap my face onto any image that we select. And we can go to this original image, go to the 3 dots, go to apps, and go to InSwapper. So there you go. There's the result using Insight Face Swap. Is it perfect? No, but with a little tweaking, especially if you were to take this image and go over to Adobe Photoshop and maybe use generative fill to kind of fill in some of the scruff to make it a little more realistic, or remove some of the smoothness in the forehead up here, it could look pretty dang realistic. I saw a really interesting example of using HeyGen this last week. Basically, they took a speech that Javier Milei did at an economic forum and translated it into English, and the result was very realistic.
It is in danger because those who are supposed to defend the values of the Western world are co-opted by a worldview.
And I think it really does highlight 2 important points. The first is obviously going into an election year, misinformation, there's a good chance that it could be spread like crazy. So it's going to be up to a lot of these AI tool developers to put watermarks inside of their generations so that we can tell the difference. The second is I really do believe that by the end of the year, most of the content that you consume online will be in your native tongue. AI will essentially translate all online video into the native language that you speak. This will absolutely even the playing field, as knowledge and information will be available in everyone's native tongue. This also echoes an announcement that came from Samsung this last week, where they said that the Galaxy S24 will actually have the ability to translate live directly on their phone. It doesn't have to send it to the cloud. It translates languages on your phone and in real time, to where you can basically have a call with somebody and listen to their voice in your native tongue. So you essentially can talk to anyone in the world.
네, 정말로요? 저는 지금 행사장에 있는데 이곳 분위기는 대단해요.
I also have an event hall right now, and the atmosphere here is amazing.
A research team out of China put together a quick little demo that showcases basically turning Gaussian avatars, so that's a Gaussian splat of a human, into an animatable object in real time. So we have a subject that's basically doing some movements here, and that movement is being directly translated onto a 3D avatar. And in other research news, a team at TikTok actually put together a really interesting white paper and demo that you can use that basically converts any image into 3D depth. So think about Leopix, but a little more realistic. And you essentially have the ability to upload an image and get a very realistic depth map that utilizes a lot of the data that was ingested by the team. So the results look really fantastic, and I think it really does highlight the fact that the future of visual effects will include depth maps that are automatically generated as opposed to rotoscoped by hand. The team at Leonardo is also giving away access to their new Alchemy versions completely for free until January 28th. So you can play around with those tools over on their website. Now, I did come across an interesting tech demo this last week, and I want to show you a very interesting use case utilizing one of the underutilized tools inside of Leonardo. So I'm inside of their image generation tool here, and let's say that we have a base image. So I have this image here, and let's say that we actually want to do a subtle variant of this image. Now, assuming this was not created inside of Midjourney or any other image generation tool where you would have the ability to subtly change this image, that could be a little challenging. And here's what I mean. If I upload this image to Discord, grab the URL, go down here to the chat, /imagine and paste, and then describe our overall image, I then have the option to do --IW for image weight, and you can type in a number between 0 and 2. 2 is the maximum weight to basically pull the style from your uploaded image. So 2 is as close to the reference image as possible. Now let's go ahead and run that, because really what I want is the core visuals to remain the exact same. I don't want it to change the overall visuals that much, but let's say I want the hair to be a little different and maybe the clothes to sit in a different way. You can see here are the results from inside of Midjourney, and while it does look fairly close to the uploaded image, it's still pretty dang different. And so this is not exactly what I'm looking for. But if we go over to Leonardo and go to image guidance, we can upload our reference image. So I'm going to take our reference image, drag and drop, and we can turn up the style strength quite a bit. I'm going to change the strength to 80. It goes a long way. And I'm going to paste in the prompt that we used inside of Midjourney to produce the exact same result. And let's go ahead and generate. So let's take a look at our images that were generated here. We have these two images, and you can see there are very subtle differences between the uploaded reference image and these results. So you can go in and fine tune that slider and change it however you want, but it is a much better tool if you need it to stay true to the uploaded reference image. In stock photography news, I came across a tool that is very interesting, but I think it really does signal the end of stock photography as we know it. So it's called Watermark, and it does exactly what you think. Basically, you can upload an image. I have this image of Shelby and I. It has watermarks all over it, you can see here. And we can drag and drop it into the tool, and within just a few seconds, the watermarks are removed and you're able to download it. So obviously watermarking is the primary way in which stock libraries typically protect their images, and now that is no longer the case. However, I did come across an article this last week from a stock photographer where they were talking about tools like Midjourney and how they essentially can create images that are perfect and more customized than the photography they could shoot themselves for a stock library. And really, the takeaway was that stock photography, as it relates to live events that are happening, is not going anywhere. It would be very uninteresting to have wedding photos that never existed or event photos that aren't quite true. However, when it comes to using stock photography for marketing or advertising where there's a bit more flexibility, AI is basically taking the entire industry by storm. And while we're talking about graphic design, I want to show you an interesting AI graphic design tool that I came across that is really interesting, and it does some things that I've never seen before. So the first thing I want to show you is the ability to actually change the color of the generations that are created. So there's a lot of features I'm not able to get to right now, but essentially you have the ability to create an image. I'm going to say a vector image, which means you can scale it up infinitely. And we'll say a dog wearing a hat, and we will click Recraft. So we have this fun image of a dog, and the cool thing is you can double click on it and it gives you the color swatches. So you can go down here to swatches and change them to your brand's colors directly inside of this tool, or you can select some of their presets here. Some of the presets don't make as much sense, but it is interesting to see that you can basically upload your brand guidelines and generate artwork directly using your color palette. The tool also has the ability to turn raster images, or images that use pixels, into vector images that you can scale up infinitely. So for example, I have this image of our logo here, and we see that we have our Chester mascot. And let's say that we want it to be in a vector format. Well, it's super easy. All you have to do is select the image and go to vectorize. So now we have the ability to scale it up infinitely, and we're not going to see any pixels. Obviously, that is very helpful if you work on advertising projects. And while we're talking about advertising, I want to let you know that our courses will go on sale on January 31st at 11 a.m. Pacific time. This is the first session where we are offering AI advertising taught by the one and only Dave Clark. It's going to be an incredible course, but we still are offering our AI filmmaking course that is updated to use the latest tools and technologies to tell your stories using artificial intelligence. Our training has helped many students land jobs even this last week, and we love that we've been able to train artists at the biggest studios and companies in the world. We'd love for you to join us on this new creative journey. The team at Elevenlabs also updated their interface. It's a lot more sleek and easier to navigate. You have access to the dubbing studio, the project studio, all of that good stuff. And Elevenlabs, they were actually sponsors of our Halloween competition, which was incredibly fun. We'll have to do that again this year. And I just wanted to note that they actually raised $80 million this last week and are valued at over $1 billion. So the team at Elevenlabs is absolutely slaying it. In addition to the lip dubbing features that we talked about earlier, the team at HeyGen actually put together an interesting demo where they had their CEO talk as if he was a chatbot. So essentially you're able to have a conversation with it like it's ChatGPT, for example, but the subject actually talks back to you in a realistic way. It's incredibly interesting, and I think it does highlight the future of creative interactivity.
As a real-time avatar, I can discuss a wide range of topics such as technology, entertainment, and general knowledge. The Apple Vision Pro is a powerful system on a chip, SoC, designed for computer vision and machine learning tasks.
And now that brings us to our AI films of the week. I want to kick things off with this film called Tainted by Tristian Rettich. And I think that it is a really interesting artistic piece that shows a lot of good curation skills. It feels like it belongs inside an art gallery, and I think Tristian did an amazing job on this project. The next film I want to highlight is called Silent Shout by Maursky. And it's more of like a mood film. There's not as much of a story, but there's some great shots that utilize fire and some really dynamic camera movements that I haven't seen on too many AI projects up to this point. So fantastic job on this project. Our next film comes from Ashley McAuley, who put together what she calls a mood film that was created for a beach club hotel competition by Hive 3. They host some really cool video competitions. You can check them out. She utilized Runway in her project to basically create this fictitious hotel scene that has some really interesting curation and shots. So I think this project is awesome. And our student project of the week comes from a Discord user that goes by the name of Bronco. They put this together for their week 3 assignment, which is basically to put together a poem or a travel film, and I think some of the imagery that they curated is absolutely stunning. I love the shot curation. It looks like a travel film, and many of these shots have this kind of ethereal ambience that really evokes kind of a sense of awe inside of the film. I definitely recommend checking it out. Thank you so much for watching this episode of AI Film News. Of course, you can subscribe to get AI Film News directly to your inbox. Just go over to Curious Refuge, click the Start Here button, and you can join us for weekly AI inspiration. And of course, you can join us for our February session. Enrollment opens on January 31st. AI filmmaking starts the first week of February, and AI advertising starts the first week of March. Thank you so much. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe. We'll see you in the next one.